Hello, climbers, and welcome to Season 3 of Climbing Mount CMMC. Hello, climbers, and welcome back to another episode of Climbing Mount CMMC, the podcast. My name is Kaleigh Floyd, and today I am joined by two wonderful people. I'm going to call you guys the Silvers. Wow, that's kind of fun. We've got Chris and Hannah, and I am super excited because Bobby and I, if you guys don't know, Bobby and I are father-daughter. He is my dad, and sometimes he has to clarify that in meetings because he calls me honey randomly, and then people are like, what is that? What a weird dynamic.
What a chauvinist pig.
Yeah, what a weird thing to say.
My daughter.
And so yeah, he'll do that sometimes in our podcast episodes too. But yeah, we're a father-daughter duo, and I am really excited that we have another father-daughter duo on here as well, from a different perspective in the CMMC community. So that is going to be super cool today. Chris, Hannah, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. And grab us some coffee while you're at it, honey.
I love it. Well, I actually already have some, so didn't even have to say that to me. Look at that. Okay, so I wanted to just go ahead and start off by if somebody's listening to this and they don't know who you guys are, Chris, do you want to go ahead and open up with who you are and what you guys do, and then Hannah, you can kind of share what you do for the company as well.
Sure, and hopefully I'll do the elevator pitch justice because I think Hannah's probably better at it. But so we formed, or I should say I formed CG Silvers Consulting. I actually formed it as kind of a side gig about like 20 years ago. And then about 11 years ago started full time. I've been kind of a closet entrepreneur for a while and decided to go at it. And so we started really focused on penetration testing, which is one of the major service lines that we have. I'm known throughout the industry as a social engineer, both from a consulting perspective and competitively. We do security education. We help with different forms of governance, risk, and compliance, like PCI, HIPAA. I love the CIS framework. And then, of course, about 5 years ago, started getting interested in CMMC. And in addition to becoming a C3PAO and consulting with companies, I also teach. So I teach CMMC certification classes, right? And hadn't seen you in one, Kaleigh, yet. So looking forward to you attending, right?
It's this guy's fault because he's been taking them all and only paying for his own. And I'm like, when do I get a chance to?
That's right.
So Hannah, okay, share what you do for CG Silvers and everything like that.
Yeah, I just celebrated last week my 1 month official anniversary of being on the team full time, which is really exciting.
That's exciting.
I've been helping out part-time for years, have a history in security in, like Chris said, social engineering and hacking space. Took a little time away from that, did product ownership in nonprofit technology for a couple of years, and I'm kind of now coming back to it, which, as you guys know, it's quite the time for that. CMMC has just been kicking up, and with the rule coming out any day now, it's really the time to have some extra hands on board, and enthusiastic hands at that. So what I've mostly been doing in this ramping up period is getting a handle on our ecosystem, whether that's clients on the consulting end or on the certification end, as well as all of our partnerships in the space. Something I really like about the CMMC ecosystem is the emphasis on partnership and having multiple parties involved for different stages and how that requires people to work together. In general, taking on the mantle of COO over here and just making sure we get things running smoothly while we're running at the same time.
Right.
Wow.
Nothing like building the bridge you're walking across. It's
Yeah.
100%. That's exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself.
So Hannah, like, how old were you when you first started working with your dad?
Working with or hanging out at security events? That's
I don't
different.
know. Maybe both. Maybe both.
Yeah. Let me quickly Google child labor laws in Georgia, and I'll get back to you.
I think he's trying to help himself with this question, but yeah. Yeah.
No, once I hit kind of middle school age, I got really interested because, of course, my dad had been in kind of like corporate security and getting more interested in social engineering and pen testing, and that just seemed so cool. I mean, just watching Sneakers, watching James Bond,
Yeah, yeah.
watching like the Ocean's movie, you watch all these movies, and all of a sudden you realize that like that's what your dad does to put dinner on the table. It's pretty cool, especially at that age. And so
Yeah.
started attending local meetups, going to conferences, volunteering at DEF CON, other places to help out with things. So kind of goes back there. And then my first my first kind of part-time job in security was while I was in college, and then had been helping with CG Silver's consulting as well, kind of part-time off and on since college, really. So the past, I don't know, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
Just whenever I had the opportunity to help out, I would kind of hop in.
That's
Yeah.
so funny because like Kaleigh, it was sort of the same way, but just
Really?
from the IT side, right? Because you were like helping out with workstation setup sometimes and
Yeah, it's
the the call
when I
coordinating.
wanted a phone. I wanted to get a phone. He said I couldn't unless I worked for him. No, but the thing that was so funny to me was it did kind of like how you said, Hannah, like it's like scratched the itch of like technology and the
Yeah.
interest of it in the sense of like all of a sudden I was like, I think I should maybe check this out a little bit more than what I was doing before. And then in high school, I started taking IT and cybersecurity classes.
Yeah.
And I was the only girl with like 30 guys in the class. And I was like, maybe this isn't the right place
The,
for me. I don't know. It's
the
like,
stories you had when you would come back, you were like, these kids,
I was
like
like,
they're
Dad,
idiots.
Children.
they're so dumb.
I'm like, I'm so sorry, honey. It's not
Yeah.
like that in the industry. Well, normally
Well,
not. So
Yeah.
Chris is like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of cool how, yeah, I feel that same way of like it morphed into something more. But I have to ask, because Bobby told me 3 years ago about this CMMC thing. And so I told him, hey, Dad, I'm pregnant with your first grandchild. And he's like, awesome, research CMMC. I think this thing is going to be really big. And I was like, okay. And so I had like maybe 3 years to prepare for this and kind of understand it and follow him and try to get a understanding of what even a system security plan is and whatnot. Like you started working full time in the thick of it this year. So this is a wild time to get started. What are some of the things that have like been crazy or different this year or that you've learned this year with CMMC being like fully, into effect with the assessments and whatnot?
Yeah. No, I think in the thick of it is a great way to put it. I think that a nice inroad is something that I actually mentioned earlier is something I really like about the ecosystem as I've seen it so far is how interconnected everything is. And I think that plays really well into a space that can feel very intimidating. It can feel very isolating. I mean, especially if you're an organization and you think you may need this certification, where do you even go for answers? Because you know things are coming up quickly and you don't know who to reach out to, you don't know who to trust, you don't know what you need. What is a level 2 versus a level 1? Why do I need that? There's so many questions, and many people don't have answers for you, or they may say, well, that actually is up for interpretation, or that's yet to be decided. Wait till Friday. I'll let you know. And so I think even as coming into it with while it's kind of ongoing actually doesn't put me at much a different position than it puts anyone else at this time.
Right.
It's just that the volume is a little bit higher than perhaps the past couple of years for everyone else, but it's still very much in a process of figuring out how do we all agree, where do we all go for authoritative answers, or where do we all go for just brainstorming and interpretation and figuring out how are we going to handle this all together. So it's felt as crazy as it feels, it also feels very collaborative in a way that I really enjoy because I think we all know that we're trying to figure it all out together. So, yeah,
Right.
it's been
That's
pretty
cool.
fun.
I love that. Chris, what about your perspective? Even like from, both the teaching side, maybe even the transition this year and the consulting side of it as well.
Yeah. Well, it kind of reminds me of when I got into security, which was in the late 90s. And I was not technical, so I didn't come from an IT background. Neither of us really. And in fact, Hannah has an English degree, by the way, and
Wow.
and she uses that degree on a daily basis. Okay, so for kids out there, English, studying English is really valuable in a business setting. Okay, big
I
time,
believe it.
because there's so many of us that can't write worth a flip, right? But yeah, I mean, it's similar. Like when I got into security, security wasn't cool, and so I got to learn this new thing, cybersecurity, along with everybody else. But the connectivity around the community is really something that hit us like last week. I don't know if you remember, Hannah, we were on a call with a potential client, OSC, who had been referred by someone who I had taught with, another instructor. And when we got on the call with them, we talked about their MSP, who turned out to be a partner of ours. And there was even another connection. I think like either one of them or somebody that they worked with was another student that I had taught. And so it was just like this whole like Kevin Bacon thing
Yeah.
where, and I was just like, this is weird, but it's interesting to hear Hannah say that that can be isolating, and when you're inside the circle, you don't realize
Mm,
there's a lot of people outside the circle, and how do they feel?
that's so
Because the
true.
the tighter the community is, the tighter it is, and the harder it
Mm,
is to penetrate. And I hope that we're doing our part to kind of welcome other people into the community, and
mhm.
just because you don't know someone, you can absolutely come in and meet people and
Mm,
network. And
And that
yeah.
that's something that we noticed, I think, coming in because we didn't grow
yeah,
up. I started the company in 2002, so very
hmm,
similar to you, like been doing this forever.
yeah,
But I didn't grow up and cut my teeth in compliance. I didn't come
right,
from, an RMF
yeah,
background
yep,
or, DOD types. I'm from a traditional MSP engagement. So when I said, hey, I really want to get in this compliance thing, and CMC seems like something that,
hmm,
organizations are going to need an MSP,
hmm,
and why don't we start pushing ourselves to become specialists in this area? I
yeah,
didn't realize what I was signing myself up for and what kind of evolution.
yeah,
And as we started going through that, I'm like, I don't see anything out there for me to know and learn this. So that's the
yeah,
reason why we started the podcast, is to
Mhm.
really start, the people that are coming in from
hmm,
outside, especially from the MSP community, to really help them start
yeah.
understanding things that they're going to need to know if they're really going to plan
Yeah,
on stepping into this space.
absolutely. We've got several MSP clients that we're helping either on the consulting side or the assessing side. And you're right, Bobby. It's a whole new universe of trying to apply something that was made for government contractors to MSPs.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stretch.
It is
It,
the hardest business thing that I've ever done by
yes.
a
Hmm.
large margin. There's
Hmm.
Wow.
nothing anywhere close than transforming our company into an
Yeah.
organization that's fully capable of helping clients,
Hmm.
ascend the mountain of level 2. And
Yeah.
that is no joke. And it's not just being able to support them on their journey or just getting them to the level 2, but continuing to maintain and support them.
Yeah.
And as an MSP, do that at scale, because that's a big deal for MSPs.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you guys notice with consulting, I mean, even with MSPs, that are trying to do this, do you
Hmm.
notice a common theme, like a struggle of the same kind, or maybe something that they all come with that is, like the same documentation or whatnot? Is there any kind of common themes in that way?
I'll let you go first, Anna, if there's something you've noticed.
Anna's like, let me say.
Oh, no, 100%. I mean, again, just kind of being new into it, I think the perspective that I have is, I mean, it's from my rhetoric background for sure, and from my business partnership background, which is just noticing patterns, noticing opportunities without being so in the weeds yet that I kind of get lost in the terminology, I guess. So it's a different perspective, but something I see a lot of MSPs so far talking to us about is how difficult applying some of the practices is when they're kind of looking at us and say, but we're not storing or handling any of this CUI. Our
Yeah.
clients are, but we're, and the mental gymnastics that they're having to go through because we're trying to certify them or we're trying to help prepare them for a
Mhm.
certification. And for a framework that is not built with them as the target audience, for sure, I would say the mental gymnastics piece of trying to separate what their scope actually is and drawing the line between that and the scope of the actual OSCs, that's been the hardest thing by far. I wonder if Chris agrees.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I do think that's a big challenge, the scoping, especially in an environment where there's no CUI. Having a lot of experience. I mean, I was working with PCI back in probably what 2010 or something. However long it's been around, I think. And the concepts involved in scoping in PCI are similar to CMMC, but they're different. And so, particularly around the concept of having an infectious host and having the scope sort of grow, whereas CMMC, it's all just focused on CUI. And so in the MSP world, that model doesn't really work so well. Another consistent theme that I've seen over the last really 5 years, and I hate this, that somehow there is a disconnect, and I'm sure you've heard this, between NIST 800-171 and NIST 800-171A,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And so many people want to focus on 171 and the practices and say, we're doing that stuff. But they forget to worry about the assessment objectives and
Assessment
say,
objectives. Yep.
how do we provide evidence that we're doing this stuff by complying with the assessment objectives? And it's amazing. I mean, even now, which I would have thought by now, companies that think they're ready, they would understand that difference, but it's still a struggle. It's amazing.
Well, for me, constantly, I keep saying to myself, I don't know how MSPs are going to do this. Like, I don't know how they're going to do this because as I'm going through the complexity of all the stuff
Yeah.
that we're working through,
Hmm.
it is like just, organizations say, okay, well, we got to help somebody with managing their CUI. Okay, well, are you familiar with how to have DLP conversations with the client
Right.
around CUI
Yeah.
and how you're going to do some sensitivity label? How about data retention? How are you going to manage the change control for that client? Because
Right.
they're going to have their change control and then you're going to have yours because you're managing theirs.
Right.
It's just the
Yeah.
list of
Yeah.
questions, the forks in the road are infinite and they just keep going,
Yeah.
and as you a lot of MSPs traditionally, the way they think about it is, well, let's just get a fish in the boat and then we'll figure out how to skin them.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way very well with you've got to have a system in place before you bring them in, because
Yeah.
if you want to move them efficiently through it, you got to have the answers to all those questions. You got to know how to do those types of things. And those are things that it's taken us a long time to go through and document the SOP, create the policies,
Yeah.
have the order of how you're going to communicate that with the client so you can efficiently move them through the journey of getting them ready for level 2. Those are, it's basically like building another MSP over again
Right.
Yeah.
is what it ends up becoming. And eventually I think the MSPs that are really serious about it are going to discover that's what they're doing. They're
Yeah.
basically starting over again because the knowledge that they had in the past of just traditional MSP doesn't really work with CMMC. You've got to really think about it in a different light.
Yeah, Chris, what about like for your business? I know you said the big thing for you guys was like pen testing and then this big beast called CMMC
Yeah.
came along. So what about the changes in your business dynamic? I know it's, not going to be the same as potentially our MSP changes in dynamic. What is it from your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we're continuing to really struggle with, to be quite honest, because the marketplace for CMMC related services is different than the marketplace for penetration testing services and really the other services that we do. I mean, it
Yeah.
is a unique beast, and as Bobby said, you basically have to create another organization. And that's what we did. We decided that we wanted to truly enclave off the CMMC operations. So, I mean, I went out and bought a different domain. We have cgsilvers.com that we do most of our business with, and we have a cgsilvers.us domain, internet domain for CMMC.
Yeah.
So that gets into creating an enclave and trying to, make sure that we're handling assessment data in that enclave. But
Yeah.
then our business processes, sales and marketing happen in the corporate domain. So it's really
So many forks, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
just keep
Yeah.
going, man.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's nutty, and and the thing is, like, you think through, you do like a thought experiment of how you think this is going to work, and then you get into it and you realize this doesn't work like this at all.
This isn't at
You
all
know,
it.
it's
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
Yeah.
The sales cycle on a pen test usually rocks along for about a year, getting to know a client, getting comfortable, building some trust, relationship, and then all of a sudden one day it's, I need a pen test. Boom, 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 and then and it's done, right? I mean,
Wow.
they want a price on a napkin, right? It doesn't matter. It's like,
Yeah.
whatever. I've known you for a year or more. I trust you. Let's just do this thing. CMMC is much more formal, like from the very start, from the introduction, right? Because everybody's so new to it, there's no, there's very little existing relationships that you can have.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
It's so true. I could talk on and on about that subject,
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
It's so hard. The other thing about that too is every time I'm in a sales call with a potential client, it's equal parts selling them on who we are and equal parts teaching them about CMMC so they can understand that we're beneficial for their CMMC journey.
Yeah.
So I have to teach them about the things that we do and then tell them that we do it and how we do it. So it's like a mixture between
Yeah.
the both, and it's impossible for a regular salesperson to do. You have to be educated in CMMC to do the sales process for
Yeah.
CMMC, because there's no way just you can click with a slide and just say those things. It's
Right.
not enough.
Well,
and-
Kaleigh, how about the challenge of like going from, okay, we have this other MSP that just wants to get you in the boat and are giving you get you in the boat pricing
Right.
versus us that
Yeah.
are like have a mature process to move them through and are not cheap, and they're like, well, what,
Yes.
and you're like,
Yes.
It is probably one of the hardest things to do because, again, you're trying to teach them why. I just got off a call. Like, I just got off a call doing this of like, why does it cost? What are we paying for monthly with that cost? I'm like, this is like 200 hours of things that we are doing before you even pick up the phone. That is what you're paying for. It is so beneficial. Not every MSP does this. We've written it out in our ticketing system. Like, we have spent a lot of time doing this, and it's like, it's so hard to communicate that you need this when other people are not even telling them about it, and then you're like, and this is how much it costs, and they're like, well, but then I don't have to pay for it when I go over here. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, but then every time you reassess in 3 years, it's going to take you a year to get ready for it because they haven't been doing it this whole time helping you, and so it's such a difficult dynamic. Chris and Hannah, I bet you see a lot of this in the consulting process with like OSCs coming to you with that
Yes.
same,
Well,
gosh.
the thing, a couple things I want to point out. First of all, yes, Bobby, that is so frustrating, and I can only imagine from an MSP perspective how you educate them around inheritance. When you've got so many competitors out there saying, oh, we can take care of 80% of your CMMC stuff and you don't even have to worry about it. And then you come along and say, well, now, wait a minute. No, I can't really do that because I can't make your decisions for you, Mr. Client, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to participate, right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing, Kaleigh, what you were saying about educating clients, imagine trying to do that without consulting,
Yeah.
because you have to be an assessor. So you can,
Yeah.
you're educating them, but you can't tell them what to do. You can't make
Yeah.
recommendations on how they can best do things.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really a struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you on your side too, Hannah? I know like with B2B and that struggle of conversation. So,
Yeah, it's a push and pull, right? I've never been previous to this. I've never been in an environment where there's so much structure around, like there's so much regulatory structure. There's an actual like CMMC assessment process that begins when they reach out to you. So my background is definitely not in such a tightly regulated environment, and so there's a push and pull there, right? Because when you want to get folks in, you want to help them understand, you want to run a more traditional sales process and something that you know works. You want to run discovery. You want to be quick. You want to, navigate to decision makers. You want to do all of those things that are kind of best practices and you have seen work and work and you're good at and well positioned to do. And you can do with every one of your other services that you provide. But then your hands are pretty tied when you get to some places. And so really being smart about where to pause the process for a second and check in with a client or a potential partner you're working with and say, hey, I want to check in on your timeline because I know we got to do all this stuff. There's this huge slide in front of you with a bunch of bullet points and there's all this stuff, but like I want to check in and say like, okay, what other are you talking to other C3PAOs? What are you getting from them? What is and just trying to keep a finger on the pulse of the conversation all the way through to make sure that by doing these things that you have to do and you will have to do at some point, you're not scaring someone off, you're not
Right.
under or overestimating what they need, you're not um kind of adding to that intimidation factor of just like throwing so much that they don't move forward with anyone, much less with you. So it's
yeah.
definitely been a tight wire act and something that but frankly, it's a lot of fun. I mean, maybe that makes me a bit psycho
Good
for
for you.
saying
I
that,
like
but
it. That's
let's
good.
you're
Yeah.
just trying to help people understand a process that is very hard to
Right.
understand, and there's
Yeah.
something really
Yeah.
satisfying about
Yeah.
trying to help it move smoother. So
Mhm.
it can be fun. It's
Well,
frustrating.
I think if you're going to be successful in this industry, you sort of have to be a little bit of cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs,
Yes.
because I mean, you
Yeah.
got to really love this industry,
Right.
or you're
Mhm.
That's true.
you're not. It's not. You're not going to last because
Yeah.
it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I,
is.
Kaleigh, with your permission, I'd like to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in my CCA course,
Mhm.
which seems crazy, you came to our session,
Chris
started.
Chris
Chris,
was?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris is there. He's
Yeah.
teaching.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're amping up and getting ready for your C3PAO assessment that you're going to have. What
Yeah.
Yeah.
psychopath would ever try to do that?
One with help.
Yeah,
One without.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know where Hannah is on the screen for you guys, but she's right up there. And
Yeah.
that was part of the key. And the other part of the key was one of the other students that was in the class with you, Bobby, is my wife, Chris.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, who was in the class with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's she was doing it too. Wow.
Yes, she was busy.
Multitasker.
She was busy getting her CCA. She's really close. She's already done the CCP, the CCA, and she just got her certification, a GRC certification from ISC squared. And so, yeah, she's about to, apply to the Cyber AB and get listed as a real CCA. But honestly, that's what keeps me going, right? Hannah and Chris are the administrators of my enclave, so I don't have administrative access. So when the DIBCAC assessors came in and said, "Can you show us this, that, and the other?" That was Hannah showing them, right? So quick proud dad moment here. She did awesome. They were
That's
really
awesome.
impressed,
Wow.
and yeah, she picked it up, learned it, and was able to help us get through the assessment.
Can
Wow.
you tell a little bit more about that journey of like why you did it and then like how that
Well,
went and who was involved? Because I
yeah,
just find that really fascinating. I
Yeah.
haven't really had a chance to talk with anybody specifically
to
about that.
to be
Yeah.
totally honest, I'm just the lucky guy. Okay. All right. Not just having a great family and support structure and everything, but the timing on CMMC, I don't think I could have designed it better if I had
Mhm.
had control, which obviously I don't. I didn't know when the final rule was coming out. I didn't know when my DIBCAC assessment would be scheduled or whatever. But as it turned out, I submitted uh, my final assessment readiness something, FARC or FARC, as John Haney calls it. I submitted my FARC like literally a week before the final rule became published, right? So it was like August, September. And DIBCAC had an opening the first week of December. So they got me in, which was a lot faster than they normally, supposedly you were going to have to wait till January or February, but they had an opening, and I put on my form, if you have an opening, I'm ready to go tomorrow, right? Because I was that confident in Chris and Hannah having,
Writing that
having
check
Yeah.
for them. Yeah, that's
yeah,
a sacrifice you're willing to make. Way to go,
that's
buddy.
right, that's right.
He didn't ask me.
So,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
No, of
well,
course.
we did a pre-assessment and they passed with flying colors.
Yeah.
So, in my pre-assessment, and honestly, I did the pre-assessment as if I was assessing another company.
Nice.
I was hard. I mean, I was demanding evidence, right? I was
I can
like,
confirm that. I
Yeah.
can confirm
yeah,
that.
That it was hard.
yeah. She was giving me screenshots and everything, and just as it turned out, having the assessment with DIBCAC that first week of December meant that they gave me a letter, my approval letter, by the second week. I got that to John Haney and said, "Can we get in this first wave of C3PAOs?" And literally, we were on a beach in Mexico, and I was filling out a form and signing
Gosh.
the C3PAO contract like December 30th so that we could be in the January 2nd. So again, I could not have timed it better if I had orchestrated
Wow,
everything. It was just pure luck. Yeah.
that's crazy.
Wow.
Now,
Yeah.
now, Hannah, was your dad a tougher auditor versus
I
DIBCAC?
had
I'm
to
just
ask that
curious.
too.
I gotta ask that.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah.
100% yes.
Well, that is true.
Absolutely.
That is true. Yeah, they were. It was a good thing actually that Hannah was with. We were, physically together when they were
Yes.
doing the assessment, because there were a few things that I didn't necessarily agree with their interpretation of a practice. And Hannah had to like pinch me and be like, "Shut up, Dad! Shut up, Dad! They're telling you it's trending met. Just shut up.
Take
Just
the win.
You don't have to teach everybody."
This is
yeah.
not an academic exercise. This is,
That's
we're not
hilarious.
having a chit chat. We're
That's
not.
exactly what I do in sales calls. I'll text them, I'll be like, Bobby, they don't want to hear more about this. Just stop talking. They
The,
seem to understand it. Okay, everything's fine.
I know I really went off the rails if after the sales call she calls me immediately. I'm like, oh
Oops.
no, here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough having a nerd for a dad, isn't it?
You're just really, I get it, Chris. You're passionate about what you do for a living. You love
Yeah.
what you do for a living. So
Yeah.
you sometimes
We're
that comes out.
well, we're blessed with that, right? And
Yeah.
we want to pass that on, don't we? We want
Yeah.
to pass that on because there's so many people out there that, they're not happy in their day-to-day job, and it's just a shame,
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kaleigh's like, simmer down. It's okay.
I'm like,
Yeah.
chill. Yeah, he's like talking about each of the controls. He goes into specifics. I'm like, they don't understand what you're talking about. Don't say that. But there's a good balance, and I think that comes with there's a reason why maybe having a father-daughter duo can be very helpful because
Yes.
I don't think there's a lot of people that could work with you as well or know you as well, besides Chris, your wife, But I think it's kind of cool to have the opportunity to be able to do it because sometimes there are things that Bobby says to me that maybe not other people would say, and same goes for me to him,
Yeah.
sort of, and it makes us a better because we are critical
Yeah.
a little bit of each other in certain things. We know what our ticks are, what the things that we do are, and we can point those things out. So it's kind of cool in that
Well,
way
and
too.
and I think it's nice to know because we, uh, my wife joined the company about 7 years ago or so, 7 or 8 years ago, and we decided from the get-go, right? We're married. We're gonna be married until we die.
Uh-huh.
Hannah's my daughter. She will always be my daughter to the day I die. No matter what happens with business, it doesn't matter, right?
Mm,
We will always, we will always have that other relationship. And I
yeah.
think it's assuring when you both know that you're on that solid ground so that
Mhm.
if things happen in business, it's just business, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely important to find that line for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this will be my 8th year working at
Wow.
Axiom full time. Eighth or
Yeah, it's
yeah,
been
8 or 9 years working at
Goodness.
Axiom this year, and
Congratulations.
it was really
Yeah.
hard to find that line, that balance. Sometimes, I'd come to visit them, and I'd be sitting on the couch Saturday morning, and he'd be like, "What do you think about if we did for sales calls?" I'm
Why
like,
do they
"Nope,
do that? Why
nope,
do
nope,
they
nope,
do
nope,
that?
nope, nope. We are
Yeah,
not
that
talking
never
about
happens,
that.
does it, Hannah?
A lot
We're
of it's
not doing
Yeah.
generational too, I feel. I think a lot of that's generational.
Yeah.
You seem to be
It's like
closer to my age,
it's like
Kaylee.
it's like work is off. Like that is turn it off. We
that
have
that
to.
has been a good lesson, I'd say, Kaylee, that
Yeah.
you've pushed to me, which has been helpful of
Yeah.
learning how to turn it off some.
Yeah.
And kind of when because Kaylee's been here for so long, when she came in, it was more of very much subordinate, right? So she came in,
Hmm.
I I'm like, just start attending some of our leadership meetings because I want you to take notes. I want you to kind
Right.
of learn of how we're doing things in our leadership team. And
Mhm.
now she's one of the, our directors, and now I'm learning from her. And so the role has changed, and
Yep.
it has been so cool seeing that evolutionary journey of her from, me teaching her to her now teaching me, and like teaching me things like, Dad,
Hmm.
slow your roll, try to turn this off, and it's been helpful. It's been very, very helpful. How's that been for you guys?
Yeah. It's already happening, believe it or not. Well, and to
I
be
believe it.
honest, the long-term plan, and I'm just, I'm throwing this out here on a podcast. I can't believe it, but the long-term plan is Hannah's going to take over the business.
Mhm.
And Chris and I are slowly, over the course of time, going to retire.
Mhm.
And so she needs to have that confidence and that leadership to keep CG Silver's Consulting alive, long after I'm dead. It'll be some billion-dollar conglomerate one day or something.
Of
Who
course.
knows, right? Yeah.
That's awesome. What about from your side, Hannah? What have you learned from working with your dad and the transition and whatnot?
Yeah, I think the kind of similar to what he was saying, the grounding there is a really special thing to have that I don't know how else you would get the level of confidence to walk in and know that, like, if I goof something up, we can admit that I've goofed something up, but like my relationship with this person is not contingent upon me, spelling so and so's name right in this email, or like accidentally misquoting this and lowballing someone on accident because I didn't understand yet, or like the my relationship with this person and my livelihood and position in this organization is not dependent on these like small things that would worry and have worried just any normal person in any other job. So I think the it expedites the timeline for learning and growth because you're spending so much less time worried and so much more time learning.
That's
And I think that's just that you can't understate how much just like impact that has on waking up, opening the laptop and being like, what am I going to do today and how am I going to approach it? Um, so that's number one. And also, I think, and maybe Kaylee, you can relate to this as well because you're a woman of around my age, but I've spent a lot of my life in external facing, client facing roles, um, over indexing on professionalism sometimes because I have to. As a I don't know, when I guess I was 23 or 24 in my first kind of like external facing roles. on calls with people my dad's age, and who had been in the industry forever, and really having to prove myself and come prepared with a slide deck, come prepared and send them the materials 3 days ahead of time, and like schedule my follow-ups aggressively, and really do a lot of things to communicate like, I know that you look at me and you see someone your daughter or your granddaughter's age or your niece's age or the intern at your company, but I am on your level and we are having a conversation now, and I need you to see me this way.
Mhm.
And something that I think has been really nice, as not just as I've gotten older, but also working with Chris and his particular approach, is he doesn't over-index on that the way that I have kind of needed to in the past. Something I think in a lot of cases I could come in with like an awesome slide deck, or I could come in so knowledgeable about what a client needs, but getting Chris on the phone with someone is maybe more effective sometimes, because
Yeah.
he knows so much, he's taught so much, especially when it talk about CMMC. There's not many people that can point to 5 years of experience in CMMC when the rule
Right.
dropped last year. There's not many people that can point to that. And so just it's hard to quantify the level of like experience, and that helps take the temperature down. It helps like, oh no, we do know what we're talking about. We can offer you so much. And it's this more like,
Yeah.
let me understand what you need. Let me convey to you in my follow-up questions how well I understand what you need. And I think I'm excited to incorporate more of that as I continue to learn and take some of that pressure down that has been a real fixture of my professional life for the past, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I don't know if that resonates with you or not.
No, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I do think there definitely is a lot of, even when I went to my first CMMC conference, CEs, or I was like, they were like, "How old are you and what are
Right.
you
Yeah.
doing here?" You know what I mean? And they were like, "I
Yeah.
think you're my daughter's age." And I was like, "I might be, but here I am." You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Well,
that was
but
that was definitely very interesting, but
I
yeah.
don't know if I've shared this to you, Kaleigh, but like I was there kind of like at a proud dad moment sitting out away from the cameras and the other things as you were interviewing different people. And there was one particular person that seemed to wonder that question pretty heavily.
Mhm.
And you composed yourself so well in that situation. And by the end of that interview, I think they understood that they were thoroughly outmatched in their understanding of CMMC because you've been doing this for some years. You know your stuff. And it's been such a proud dad moment to see you surpass me. There's many times where you're like, "No, Dad, that's actually wrong. It's here," and I'm like, "Oh crap, that's right. That does say that in the
It's
cap."
not often though. Don't
Oh,
say come on. Don't put me too high.
you catch me more than you think, I think. And then and it's just been really cool to see that evolution of you grow through that. And Chris, I can kind of tell that's something you're looking forward to, and it's
Yeah.
going to happen, and it's probably already happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
I think confidence, right?
Yeah.
If you raise a confident child, they can do anything, and us old guys, our brains are, slowing down day by
So
day,
true.
right? But you young kids are your brains are so elastic, and you can learn so much. And if you don't have the fear in your way, you're there. And I've been very accustomed to working with younger folks in the security industry. I mean, when you get into kind of the technical side of cybersecurity, or as they call it, the hacker side, a lot of young folks. So I'm
Yeah.
very familiar, and I like
That's
it. I
cool.
mean, I think it kind of keeps me young, right? I
Mhm.
hang out with younger folks, and I go to nerdcore rap parties and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Dad, why don't you go to nerdcore rap parties? What
I'm
are you
not
doing?
I'm not as cool as Chris.
Yeah, I don't.
They are pretty fun. I can
I can
confirm. They're
I
pretty
can
fun.
I can say that with absolute authority there. I'm
That's so
definitely not as
awesome.
cool.
I also did want to say too, like with what Hannah was saying, I definitely learned a lot from. I think my something that's cool about my dad is that he doesn't have to like even if he knows a lot in a room, like maybe he's very knowledgeable about a specific topic in the room and there are people talking about that subject, he doesn't have to convince those
Right.
people that he is the smartest person in the room, that he could just communicate his side of it and not have to bring like an ego with
Right.
it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you don't have to prove anything to anybody,
Yeah.
just share what you know, and that's okay. And so I think that I kind of took that perspective as well, even from a woman perspective and being young and doing this, and maybe not a lot of young folks are in the CMMC space at this moment, that even if they feel like, okay, she's young, she doesn't know a lot or whatnot. Well, I might not know everything that you do, but I do know a lot, and it's
Mhm.
okay. I don't have to convince you that I know a lot.
Right.
I'll just tell you what I know, and that's fine. And so, like, in that perspective, those conversations don't seem to, I definitely do have them a lot. They don't seem to bother me as much, but it's really fun. And also, I think at the same time, learning to be a mom to somebody who, like, a almost 3-year-old too, it's like, I don't want her to ever one day like see me talking low and down upon myself. There are
Right.
things that I know, and be confident about the things that
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely.
So that's what I want her to see too. Um, but I have loved this conversation. This has been so fun. I feel like I could keep talking honestly for an
Yeah.
hour,
I,
but
I feel like we need another hour or
I
so
know.
to,
I
talk.
do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Because it's like it's already been 45 minutes. I don't even feel like it's past, which is wild. But are you guys going to Seek West?
We are not.
Uh,
Yeah, the class I was supposed to teach turned out didn't make, so
mm,
we pivoted and I'm actually going to another conference.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll have to hit you up for some classes soon, Chris,
Yes,
because
definitely.
maybe Bobby will let me do it now that we're well after May when all the conferences are over. Because
Right.
apparently everybody does their conferences in May. I don't know if
Well,
you've known that, but
yeah. Yeah,
it's a
they
wild.
typically there's a break during summer and then they'll pick up in the fall again. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's wild. But
Yeah.
thank you guys so much for being on here and not only talking about your business and what you guys do professionally, but also being, a little bit more personal and letting your guard down a little bit on that side too. I know that's not always easy, but it's been really cool to see you guys' perspective, and we definitely feel you from
Yeah.
our side too. It's
Yeah,
super
for sure.
cool and a very unique and fun experience.
Mhm.
So I hope that many of you guys listening have enjoyed this side of things. But if you aren't already familiar with Chris and Hannah and what they do with their company, make sure to check out the link below, follow them on LinkedIn. They are doing some really cool stuff over there. Chris is an excellent teacher.
Oh yeah.
10 out of 10 would recommend. Bobby
Wow.
would say the same thing as well. So make sure to check them out. But make sure to also tune in next Thursday for another episode of Climbing Mount CMMC. But until then, guys, keep on climbing. See ya. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to stay up to date on the latest CMMC news. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and listen out for the next one. But until then, keep on climbing.